Greetings, one and all. Welcome back to the Icing on the Skate podcast. Today is the 8th of October 2018, and I am joined once again by this geezer over here, Chris Gadsby. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
So yeah, guys, for those of you who've been watching the last few podcasts, Chris's face is back. Whee!
I don't know. That might not necessarily be a good thing.
Well, I'm glad to have it back because it means that not everybody has to look at me all the time. So,
That is true.
Although we did have a still of your face last episode, which I thought looked quite nice. But anyway, wow, episode 5. It's the
5 weeks in a row we've done this.
Yeah, I know. Like, that's commitment. I'm quite
Yeah.
impressed. I'm quite impressed with us. So, as you can imagine, I do love the attention. As you can imagine,
there he does, Ben.
The NHL started this week, so we've got a lot of stuff to talk about,
Yep,
I think.
really have.
We really do. So I think it's best if we just crack on straight away.
Yep, okay. Elite League scores from the past week then.
Do it.
Starting with Wednesday, the 3rd of October, where the Cardiff Devils beat the Dundee Stars away from home by 3-2, and the Manchester Storm beat the Nottingham Panthers by 4-3.
Yes.
Moving into Friday, the Belfast Giants beat the Milton Keynes Lightning by 5-1, and the Glasgow Clan beat the Five Flyers by 2-1.
Indeed.
Into Saturday, a great game in Guildford where the Flames beat the Stars 6-5. The Devils were victorious at home to the Storm by 4-1. The Sheffield Steelers lost to the Glasgow Clan by 4-2. The Nottingham Panthers shut out the Coventry Blaze by 3-0. And the Belfast Giants got their second win over the Lightning in as many days as they won by 7-0. Then yesterday, the Dundee Stars lost to the Flames by 4-2. The Belfast Giants beat the Coventry Blaze by the same scoreline. The Milton Keynes Lightning beat the Nottingham Panthers by 5-1. The Storm beat the Clan 6-2, and the Flyers beat the Steelers 4-1. Those are the results. What that does for the standings, we'll start first in the Elite League, where despite 2 defeats this week, the Nottingham Panthers still lead the Elite League table, although they have played considerably more games than anybody else. They're 4 points clear at the top. Cardiff Devils are chasing them down. They've got 4 games in hand. They're second with 10 points. The Five Flyers are in third with 9. The Giants are in fourth with 8. The Guildford Flames are also on 8 points. They're in 5th. The Coventry Blaze have 7 in 6th. The Glasgow Clan have 6 points. They're leading the teams on 6 points, actually, with their better percentage record. They're in 7th. The Manchester Storm at the moment are rounding out the playoff places. They're in 8th. The Lightning and the Dundee Stars also have 6 points each. And then at the foot of the table, based on percentage wins, is the Sheffield Steelers, who have played 9, won 3, lost 6, and they're on 6 points as well. But it is worth pointing out that only 2 points separate 4th from 11th.
Yeah, which is clearly an indication of how early we still are into the season, really, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. We're only, not even a quarter of the way through. With regards to the Challenge Cup, that game in midweek between the Storm and the Panthers, I mean, I sent it to you, Hayden. It comes down now. The Panthers have to win in regulation.
Right.
Anything else, and well, obviously the Manchester Storm win, they're through. But if the Panthers don't win in regulation and they win in overtime or a shootout, it comes down to the 7th criteria of a tiebreak to separate the two sides. But the Manchester Storm would win it on away wins. In Group B of the Challenge Cup, the Belfast Giants are still top. Dundee Stars in second, 2 points behind them with 1 game to play. The Five Flyers have played all of their games. They're in third, so they're out. And the Glasgow Clan are at the bottom with 3 points, 2 to play. So also it's going to be very difficult for them to get into the top 2 spots. In Group C, the Cardiff Devils have a 100% record. The Guildford Flames are in second, and the Lightning and the Blaze both have 2 points each. They're in third and fourth.
Interesting. So, those are all the scores from the last week of the British Elite League. Thoughts, Chris? Any games that jump out to you straight off the bat?
Well, I was commentating on the Lions game last night as the Panthers were playing the Lightning, and none of us really expected them to go 4-0 down and to end up losing 5-1.
Didn't they score like 3 goals in a minute?
Yeah, it was something
Yeah, it was
ridiculous like
crazy.
that. But I mean, the Panthers still head the table, but the problem is that, well, they've only got the third best record now, but they've played so many more games than other people. That's why they're out at the top. But
I mean, they've played pretty well so far this season. Like they haven't played amazingly, but they haven't played awfully. You know, like,
no, I mean, you were never going to go through the whole season unbeaten.
No, exactly. Like they're very much in like a win-loss. They're playing roughly 500 at the moment in terms of their record in the last like 6 games or so. And I think it's mainly to do with the amount of bloody penalties they take. Like they
take a stupid amount of penalties.
That's the biggest problem with them. Like they're allergic to playing 5-on-5, which really doesn't help them when they're trying to win hockey games.
No.
And they've had a couple of suspensions recently and everything like that. So
Cardiff are being quite sneaky. They're kind of just hanging around, just minding their own business. But are just, they're top of the Challenge Cup group. They're second in the league, although they have the second best record. They're obviously in the CHL on Wednesday over in Sweden. But they've kind of slipped under the radar a little bit, which is surprising for the champions.
I think, like we said last week, it's just kind of them going about their business, really.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like we've expected them to have a really good season for the last 2 years. They've had a really good season, and then this year they're continuing to do so. I think, especially with what we said early on with the Devils, because we'd seen them in the Champions Hockey League, and of course they've struggled they've struggled the majority of the time they've been in the CHL. We were kind of thinking, oh, is this a sign of things to come for the season? Which I think is a fair question. Like, we were judging it based on the games that they had played recently. However, of course, the Vaxshire Lakers are incredibly different to the Glasgow Clan or something like that, for example. So, I mean they're playing... You could... The thing I find about this Cardiff Devils team is they seem very geared up for an elite league run. They whereas the Panthers, they didn't have the best domestic season. They had a really good Champions Hockey League. I just think that the Devils are more geared up for a domestic season than an international season. Does that make any sense?
Well, just look at. We spoke about then just the Panthers in the penalty box. They're averaging it's over 15.5 minutes per game penalties.
No.
I mean, that's not penalty kill time necessarily, but that's penalties.
Major penalties as well.
Yeah, but compare that to Cardiff, who average 8 minutes. Fife average 8 minutes. Yeah. Belfast are only up at 12. Yeah. Guildford are at 12. Panthers have got, apart from like Manchester, Panthers are really up there with the biggest amount of minutes per game on average.
Yeah, they need to stay out of the box.
They do.
Committing penalties can be the easiest way to lose momentum for your team.
Yeah.
And especially considering they allowed so many goals so quickly in that game against Milton Keynes. You've got to give credit to Milton Keynes, though.
Absolutely.
They've just been defeated twice by Belfast. They scored a total of 1 goal in those 2 games against Belfast. They allowed 12 goals. Yeah, 12 goals to their 1, and then they come in and smash 5 past Michael Garnett. So fair play to them. Milton Keynes are a very interesting team. They're a very streaky team. They're a team that you could when they lose, you're like, okay, yeah, they're a smaller team, smaller budget, second year in the league, it makes sense. But then when they actually start to play well, they start to play really well.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it. They've beaten Sheffield, but then again, of course, they're having their struggles, but they're still an arena team. They beat Sheffield opening night. They've beaten Nottingham. All they need to do is beat Cardiff and Belfast. And they've beaten the biggest teams in the league. They've completed the square,
Yeah. I mean, where was that? So they scored... Well, they scored 3 times in 1 minute and 12 seconds.
That's ridiculous.
But then it was 4 times in 2 minutes and 43 seconds.
See,
to go from 0-0 to 4-0 within 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So, fair play to Milton Keynes. They capitalised on the chances that they had, but Nottingham, you've got to stay out of the box, boys. I think that's the game that kind of threw me off the most this weekend.
But
I,
it was unnecessary as well. I mean, the penalty for that opening goal was the too many men on the ice penalty.
oh, the New
Like,
York Rangers have been having problems with
but
them
like you
first
can
three games of
avoid
the
those
season.
so easily.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. I think Dundee taking Cardiff to overtime is quite impressive on that Wednesday game.
That was
I
good
think
for
that's incredibly impressive. Of course, Dundee's another one of those teams. It's very similar to Milton Keynes. Like they have shown so far that they have been a very tough team to play against.
Yeah.
Like they don't make it easy. Like they'll lose, but they won't make it easy for your team.
No,
That's fair
not
play.
at all.
Well, for example, there's one. So their Wednesday game, a 1-goal differential, went to OT, so they got a point. Their Saturday game, 1-goal differential, 11 goals scored in that game total. Their Sunday game, a 4-2 loss. So it's a really close. They're getting some close games here. They're not huge 7-goal blowouts like Milton Keynes have had, or being shut out and have 3 against like Coventry. Like they're staying competitive with the teams that they're playing against. They don't make it easy, which I quite like. I really do like that. I respect Dundee for that, to be honest. So yeah, like those are the scores. The standings are very interesting. I think Sheffield being at the bottom is obviously we could literally do an entire podcast on the Sheffield Steelers.
We could do. In fact, we almost have in the last couple of weeks.
I mean, we've got a whole podcast's worth within like the last 3 weeks. We're conscious that we talk about the Sheffield Steelers quite a lot.
Yeah.
On the one hand, it's like we shouldn't talk about them so much because there are 10 other teams in the Elite League.
But on the other hand, they're always in the news.
Exactly. There's just so much going on in Sheffield at the moment that we can't really like hide away from it. But we have got a few news topics to talk about regarding the Sheffield Steelers. So maybe we'll go into a bit more detail then.
Shall I do the fixtures, or shall I round off the Elite League later with next week's fixtures?
Yeah, round it off later once we talk about all the different stuff.
No worries.
I think, well, for example, Sheffield they lost both games this weekend. Like, they're really not in a good place right now. Milton Keynes, they lost 2 of 3 this week. I'm just having a quick look through. Manchester went 1-1 this weekend. Nottingham went 1-1 this weekend. Fife, they played in the Challenge Cup this weekend, a game, right? Because they played League on Sunday against Sheffield and they won that. Cardiff have gone undefeated this weekend, I think, as well. So, like, we're starting to see some teams pull away from each other. Like, I think the Panthers, the fact that they didn't capitalise on some of those games that they've had in hand is going to come back to bite them later on in the season. I think especially when Cardiff and Fife, they start playing a few more league games. That's going to be very interesting to see.
Well, I mean, games is going to really come into it. I mean, we're going to get onto that later on, aren't we?
Of course, definitely.
Like games in a season, but I mean, Cardiff, especially with the CHL as well, they did really well last year to play in the CHL and get far in the cup and defend their league title.
Yeah, and considering they haven't won a single game in the Champions Hockey League so far this year, that's quite a demoralising thing to happen to a team before their domestic season starts. Like, you're going into the season having not won a single game before the puck drops for your first Elite League game of the season. And they started their Elite League season late because they were playing in the CHL. So the fact that they've had the start that they've had just goes to show the kind of calibre of players and the calibre of a team that the Cardiff Devils have. So I think props to them. Like they're showing that they're really wanting to fight for their league championship again this season.
I really hope Cardiff do well. I hope they get a win in the Champions Hockey League before the end of the group stage. And I do like Cardiff. I would like them to do well.
Definitely. Okay, so we have a couple of news topics to talk about. We may as well start with the Sheffield Steelers, get them out of the way first.
Yep, okay.
So the Sheffield Steelers, you may have remembered, I think it was last week we talked about this.
Yes, it was, yes.
Forward Ryan Martindale, 26-year-old Ryan Martindale. It was announced quite early on this week that Ryan Martindale has left the Sheffield Steelers due to personal reasons. I'll bring up the article on the EIHL website just so I can read it through for you. So the Sheffield Steelers have announced that forward Ryan Martindale has left the club for personal reasons. The 26-year-old joined the club last week, making his debut during Saturday's 3-2 Challenge Cup win against Nottingham, scoring one of South Yorkshire's side's 3 goals, before playing in Sunday's 5-2 loss in Coventry, which was Paul Thompson's last game. Martindale informed the Steelers on Tuesday that he would be returning to Canada to be with his family. The club has confirmed a replacement will be sought as quickly as possible, which we will get into in a moment. Whilst the search continues for the new head coach following Paul Thompson's resignation, I should say, earlier this week. So, Ryan Martindale, personal reasons, obviously something going on with his family. That sucks. I think that's really awful. I think both myself and Chris obviously wish him the best.
Of course.
We don't know what happened there. It's clear that the Elite League and the Sheffield Steelers haven't really gone into too much detail, which obviously makes me think that Ryan Martindale didn't want too much detail to be gone into it, or it isn't any of the fans or players' business, which I completely respect. If it's nothing to do with hockey, the fans don't need to know, I don't think.
No, not at all.
This. So, sucks to see Martindale leave, considering he did score a goal in his debut. He looked like he could be quite good for the Sheffield Steelers, but family do come first. We wish you the best, Ryan Martindale. Hope everything's okay. But then, we move on to the second piece of Steelers news. The Sheffield Steelers have decided to re-sign Jonas Westerling.
The 36-year-old.
Yes, the 36-year-old, just 6 months after he left the team. So, I've got the article up here. Sheffield Steelers have re-signed forward Jonas Westerling just 6 months after the Swede left the South Yorkshire side. Like Chris said, the 36-year-old spent the 17-18 season with the Sheffield Steelers, scoring 27 points in 46 Elite League games, whilst also helping the team reach the playoff finals. A veteran of almost 600 Allsvenskan games, which is the Swedish league, the second Swedish league. Westerling joined Hungarian side, I'm not going to try and pronounce that name, in July, and scored 10 points in 8 games. There you go. For the Erstliga outfit before agreeing his Elite League return on Thursday. Westerling was quoted saying, "I'm thrilled to be coming home to Sheffield. I loved my time there, was delighted to know that the club wanted me back. I can't wait to hook up with the guys tomorrow at the arena and see everyone at the game on Saturday. I'm so excited." I don't know if he scored any goals this weekend. I don't believe he did.
No, one assist. One assist.
He had one assist in his debut weekend back with the team. I put out a tweet in response to the Sheffield Steelers about this, and I think it's still very apt. Whilst the fans are clearly very happy to have him back, this doesn't solve the problem overnight. I think this is a kind of example of the Sheffield Steelers maybe trying to distract some fans. I don't know if that's the right thing to say, but it's kind of trying to go, hey, look, we've got one of the fan favourites back. Ignore the fact that we don't have a coach and we're bottom of the league table. Yeah, we're struggling. So, yeah, but however, it's nice to see Westerling back. He was obviously a solid player, went, a point every 2 games, I think. So that's roughly, pretty decent production for a 36-year-old in the league who has lots of experience in the Swedish second-tier league. So hopefully Westerling helps the Sheffield Steelers get back to their winning ways, I guess. Any thoughts on it, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's come in while they're under this temporary head coach,
Mark Matheson.
Yeah, so obviously he's got to do the best he can, and he's brought Jonas in.
Yeah.
If they get a new head coach and Jonas doesn't get on with this new head coach,
yes,
is that going to cause a problem? But then again, you've got that with any player.
Yeah.
As you said, it doesn't fix the problem, but it's a piece of the puzzle that might go to helping Sheffield turn their season around.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I think, yeah, like if the new coach isn't happy, I've got a theory, right? This will be the last thing I want to say on the Sheffield Steelers for today's episode, but I've got a theory, right? So Mark Matheson, player coach for this season when Paul Thompson was still there. I think the plan was, I think potentially the plan could have been, you know, all the backlash that happened with the bad start to the season for the Sheffield Steelers. I think Matheson was intended to be the successor to Paul Thompson in Sheffield. I think he's a fan favourite. He's been a player coach for this season. He's getting that experience on the coaching side as well as the playing side. I'm not 100% sure whether he was a player coach last season. I don't think he was. So I'm not entirely sure from that regard. I think they planned to, for next season, go, Mark Matheson is our new head coach. We've seen many Elite League players convert straight to the head coach position. I mean, we've got a few of them as head coaches right now in the league. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was what they were intending anyway. I think the fact that he's the head coach, I don't think Sheffield are too complacent about that fact. However, the problem is it's come a little bit too early in what they would have wanted. So I guess the question is, because I read the statement that you actually sent me, Chris, from Tony Smith regarding the Steelers. and apparently they've had a lot of interest in their head coach position. They've got some applications that have been put in. They're doing interviews and everything like that. My question is, do they go and sign a head coach either for a year or longer, and then say, Mark Matheson, you can be a player coach, retire, you can be an assistant coach. Maybe one day he'll be the coach of the Sheffield Steelers. Or if they start to play well before they get the coach, do they just say, right, Matheson, you've got the reins for the rest of the season. We'll figure it out at the end of the year.
I'm wondering if they start to play well, I would say that it would make more sense to leave him till the end of the season rather than disrupt everything again and bring somebody in.
Exactly.
If the problem still isn't solved, then yes, get somebody in and you know, and then try and turn it around with a new full-on head coach and let him get down purely to playing.
But then do they sign him until the end of the season and then
right,
we'll figure it out from here? Or do they sign him because he might have, like, for example, Rick Chernomaz played how many games in the DEL? Doug McKay, he's been part of the NHL. Like, we've got some decent coaches in the league. Do they go, okay, we need to find somebody that's got experience, just as an example, the SHL. Let's sign him for 3 years. What would that halt the Steelers' plans? Were they planning on making Matheson the coach at some point? It's a very interesting topic, I think, to talk about. I think we could come back to it at the end as part of the audience questions, last call. So if you've got any things you want to say on that, leave them till the end of the stream and we'll get back to them. Should we move on?
Yeah, Milton Keynes.
Yes, the Milton Keynes Lightning have signed Brit forward James Hounsome. The 19-year-old
not
British...
Ben Hounsome,
Yeah,
as you put in the message to me earlier.
Right.
I'm there on Elite Prospects going, this guy doesn't exist.
You didn't have to call me out on that, because I've got the article right here. Thank you very much. You're making me look bad, Chris. So, the Milton Keynes Lightning have signed 19-year-old British forward James Hounsome. The Portsmouth-born winger played junior hockey for Swindon before joining the Okanagan Hockey Academy in 2012, moving to Canada to join the CIHA Voyageurs Minor Midget AAA in 2014. Hounsome has been playing in North America ever since, most recently playing for Eastern Hockey League side Boston Junior Rangers. This is a quote from head coach of the Milton Keynes Lightning, Doug McKay. James has trained with the Lightning for a week, and I've seen enough to know he has promise and he is worth investing our time and efforts in. Oh, that's nice. Hounsome also represented Team GB at the 2017 IIHF Under-18 World Junior Championships Division 2A and is expected to make his EIHL debut in Belfast. I don't recall him having scored a goal. The team only scored one goal in those 2 games.
He conceded a major penalty, but...
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, that's helpful. So, a 19-year-old coming to the Milton Keynes team. I don't really see any downside to this. A guy gets the chance to play with an elite league team. If not, he gets put somewhere else for a bit of conditioning. They've got some other good young players in Milton Keynes. Cole Shudra, of course, on loan from the Sheffield Steelers. So he's got some good young players. I assume he's played with Shudra before within the GB system, perhaps. So, excuse me. So I think it's going to be... I think it makes sense. I think that's a good move. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's a good move. Does it say, is he on a 2-way or is it just straight Milton Keynes?
It just says that they've signed him.
Actually, if he's come back over, yeah, I suspect it's just straight Milton Keynes. Conceding a major penalty in your first weekend isn't great. I'm not sure. It might be if it was a fight, then that's obviously all fair enough because he's standing up for his team. If it was something like boarding, I'll have a look.
Yeah,
I'll come in and have a look. But yeah, I mean, to me it makes sense. Again, I mean, if you've got a young Brit, he's got dual nationality.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
With Slovakia, but I don't think he counts as an import because he's a junior and he's been playing in British juniors.
He was born in Portsmouth, so
yeah, so he doesn't count as import, which is also obviously advantageous to the Lightning. I think that it does make sense, and obviously having a young player, he'll have plenty of legs on him, and he'll probably only help the Lightning out.
Definitely, I couldn't agree more. So, the last little bit of news before we get onto our standard weekly debate topic. We need to have a name for like the EIHL weekly debate topic that we have every week. If you have an idea in the chat, let us know. I'd love to give it a name because we've already got like Kirk's Corner, Last Call. We're starting to build something here, guys. So
we are. We need jingles for them. That's exactly
the next thing. So the last the last piece of news is the Player of the Month. So the EIHL announced September's Player of the Month is Fife Flyers Shane Owen. The goaltender for the Fife Flyers has been given the Player of the Month award by an online vote of Elite League fans. So I assume it's the one on Twitter, because I voted on that one. The netminder, who conceded 5 goals on 148 shots over 3 games, scored almost 40% of the 4-way vote. The final results of the voting, which it was ran on Facebook and Twitter, so obviously combined the two, so with 39.17 or 39.17% of the vote, Shane Owen. With 31.26% of the vote was Joey Martin for the Cardiff Devils. I think would have also been a worthy candidate. With 20.38% was Justin Kovacs of the Nottingham Panthers. And with 9.19% was Alex Nikiforuk of the Coventry Blaze. There were 2,895 votes in total. And fans will be able to choose October's Player of the Month by voting online shortly after the month is over. So
just very quickly backtracking, James Howson's 5-minute major was for fighting Jane and Risling last night.
Oh, okay, right.
There were 1, 2, 3 fights last night.
Wow.
Between the Panthers and the Lightning. But yeah, that was his 5-minute major.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Chris. So, just to give you a bit of insight into the Player of the Month, the Twitter poll had Shane Owen with 41% of the vote, Joey Martin with 31%, Justin Kovacs with only 18%, and Alex Nikiforuk with 10%. So, obviously, the Facebook voting was relatively similar, which I guess is pretty good. Either it made sense, or the same people were voting on both polls. I guess we'll never know. So, that's it for the Elite Ice Hockey League news. Now on to our little debate of the week, and it's to do with the Challenge Cup. I was thinking maybe we could have a chat about webcasts, but then again, not all the teams have them. That might be the topic for next episode. It was spurred on by my by me watching the Manchester Storm Nottingham Panthers webcast. I had a few choice things to say about it, but maybe we'll talk about that in the next week's episode. So, Chris, I'd like to ask you a very important question regarding the Challenge Cup.
Mm-hmm.
So, with 11 teams now in the Challenge Cup, it's gotten a bit confusing in terms of how everything works. Most of the webcasts that I've listened to have no idea how they have to get like a whole paragraph worth of text in order to figure out how the Challenge Cup is actually decided, especially for the lower teams.
Well, it's relatively straightforward.
Well, it's not.
It was.
It was when there were 12 teams. So the question that I have for you, and I guess for the viewers, if you want to leave a comment, the Challenge Cup, is the Challenge Cup a vital part of the Elite Ice Hockey League season, or is it an afterthought during a grueling year-long season? Chris, what do you think?
You can tell what the fans think, because if you have a Challenge Cup game, normally they're either midweek or something like that, and the attendance is generally quite a bit lower.
Yep.
In the Challenge Cup games, no one really sees them as well. I mean, a lot of the fans say that they're not as crucial as the league.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons they say that is because, unlike the NHL, for example, you get a trophy for winning the league in the Elite League, and I know, yes, you win.
You get the President's Trophy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but that's only if you. Well, yeah, I mean that's for getting the most points. But no one. I mean, yes, it's nice if you win the President's Trophy, but it's all about the Stanley Cup, isn't it? And that's where our playoffs are slightly a bit different.
Okay.
I think they could do a little bit more. They messed themselves up with the Challenge Cup last year by only announcing how the knockout stages and that pick your own opponent thing right towards the end of the group stage.
I still believe they're doing that, the pick your own opponent. I think that's still part of it. Don't quote me on it.
Yes, it is. Yes,
yep.
It is.
I think it's the top teams from each group get to pick.
Not quite.
No. Okay.
So
how's it done?
Right. So everyone plays round robin against their teams, the teams in their group. We know that. There's A, B, and C.
Yep.
Now, Group A has 3 teams in it. Group B has 4, and Group C has 4.
Yep.
Now, at the end of the knockouts, at the end of the round robin, the team at the bottom of Group B and C are automatically knocked out. Thank you very much. Go home.
Okay.
And then you end up with 3 groups of 3 teams in effect.
Got it.
Yes. Okay. Now, I've got to read this myself as the.
That's all right. Take your time.
Okay, so.
We've got an hour.
Right. So what happens is that from B and C, where the team got knocked out, they kind of disregard all the results against that team, and then they readjust the group as if there were only ever 3 teams in the group.
Right. So for groups B and C, they go, okay, so all
your results against the team in 4th place don't count. We're going to pretend they never happened, and we're going to redo the table as if it was only the 3 teams playing.
So for example, if you won both games against the 4th place team, but you lost like your other games against the 3rd place team, you would lose the points from the bottom place team.
Yes.
Okay, and then they readjust them based on who has the most points.
And then they readjust them based on their total points against the other team.
Do you see why this is confusing?
Then teams... Right, so then the top team in each group are automatically through to the knockout stage, and they're seeded 1, 2, and 3 based on their total points.
Okay.
So the winner of Group A, the winner of Group B, the winner of Group C are seeded 1, 2, and 3 based on their points.
Okay.
The remaining 6 teams, so 2nd and 3rd in A, B, and C, are ranked 4 to 9 depending on their total points and the tie-breaking necessities if they need them.
Okay.
The team in 9th is then knocked out.
Right.
So then you have seeds 1 to 8.
Okay.
And then the teams 1 to 4 can choose their opponents from 5 to 8. But obviously the first seed gets first pick, and then 2nd and 3rd, and whoever comes 4th has who's left.
Yeah.
And then it's the same as it was before.
Okay.
So then it's just a knockout.
So with Group A, which is Sheffield, Manchester, and Nottingham,
yes,
there is the potential that all 3 of them could go through?
Correct.
How does that work?
Because
like you said, it's a regulation win to go through to the next round. If Nottingham want to go through, they have to get a regulation win.
Correct.
So there isn't.
Yeah, I can see where
because Sheffield, Manchester, and Nottingham aren't going to lose any points because there isn't a 4th place team.
Yeah, so they don't lose any points. So they could potentially all have 5 by the end, and then it will come down to tie breaks between them. So
sorry, keep talking. I'm just going to get up the Challenge Cup standings again. I want to double check this.
Yeah, so the Steelers are currently top, but they could still finish in like 3rd place.
Yeah.
So if you look at Group B and C.
Okay.
Right, if you look at Groups B and C, imagine at the moment that it finishes now.
Yeah, so Glasgow would be out and
Coventry
would be out.
Just for argument's sake, Glasgow and Coventry are out.
Right.
And then we won't do the readjustments because we'll keep it simple. So at the top of Group B and C are Belfast and Cardiff, and then Sheffield.
Yep.
So let's claim that, so Belfast have got the most points, so they're going to be seeded first.
Yep.
Cardiff second, so they're going to be and then Sheffield. So then the
Dundee
remainder
of the
teams. So Dundee would be 4th, so that would be 1,
points.
2, 3, and 4. Correct. So then you lose the bottom 2, so you lose Glasgow and you lose Coventry. You would also lose Milton Keynes because they only have 2 points. So then you would end up with the Storm, who have 4, the Panthers, who have 3, the Flyers have 5, and the Flames have 4. So the 5 Flyers would be ranked 5th.
Okay.
The Flames would be ranked, they go into a tiebreaker with the Storm, but let's say the Storm's 6th and the Flames 7th.
Yeah.
And then the Panthers 8th.
8th, yeah.
So then the team in 1st, Belfast, can choose from 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th their opponent, and so on and so on. Then it's a 2-legged quarter, 2-legged semi, and a single game final. And of course, the team with the highest seed gets the choice of home leg first or second.
You can see why nobody has any idea what's going on here.
It's more complicated because there's only 11 teams. Now I've gone through it, I can understand it quite well, and I get what they're doing.
Yeah, but then we've had to sit here for 10 minutes and talk through it.
Yeah, I think it's once the group stages are over.
Yeah, once you know what's going on, it's fine. But the problem is they've changed it so much from last year. Nobody has any bloody clue what's going on, which kind of brings me to the point. Is this all worth it? This whole
Well, this is what. Yeah, because you're at the point now where, sure, if you were Glasgow or Coventry, you'd be feeling pretty hard done by because you're playing more games than the teams in Group A, and the teams in Group A could all go through, regardless of how bad you play. Well, I mean, if you lose everything, then you won't. But it looks as though they may well all go through.
Yeah, because most teams in Group B and C only have 1 or 2 games left.
Yeah, but when you consider that they're going to nullify the results against the team that gets knocked out at the bottom, all the points you see are going to come down. Yeah. You could lose 4 points if you've won both games against the team that goes down.
Yeah. Which is ridiculous. I think surely Belfast, they beat Glasgow both times, right? I think so. Have they played Glasgow yet in the Challenge Cup?
So they would drop down to 4 points.
Exactly. Which is, for example,
5 games.
1 point higher than Nottingham at the moment, and they've got 1 game in hand.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. So the reason why I wanted to bring up this topic of debate, I mean, we haven't really even got into the topic of the debate.
No,
We've actually just been spending the last 10 minutes trying to figure out how it actually works.
We'll do it quickly.
Chris, I'd like to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Out of all the hockey leagues in the world, every single one, how many other hockey leagues in the world have an extra trophy that isn't top of the regular season and playoff winner?
Well, the National Ice Hockey League here, in terms of the EIHL, they have a few little tournaments that you can enter if you want. There's only about 6 teams in them. Right. But I mean, that's more for game time, ice time for players, that sort of thing.
I'm talking part of the league.
You're talking in the NHL, KHL, that sort of thing.
Yeah. SHL, Allsvenskan, DEL, SM Liga.
Yeah.
All that stuff. Do you know what the answer is? I don't have the exact stat, but I think I know what the answer is.
Is it 0?
Not many.
Why?
I
would perhaps like to see maybe an FA Cup or a League Cup in ice hockey where it's just a free-for-all and it's drawn out of a hat and you play...
This is something that we've discussed on, I think, one of the very
We did it back in
podcasts.
April, didn't we?
Yeah.
Have a free-for-all draw and play a 1 game or, maybe a home and away if there's obviously not that many teams in it.
Yeah.
And just rather than this, because you're adding... 6 games in the group stage, 8 in the quarterfinal, 10. You're adding in 11 games to the season, which is already 60 games. That's 71.
Yep.
Plus then 4 in the playoffs at least is if you win it is 75. Plus if you're Cardiff, at least 6 CHL games. That's 81.
So basically playing an NHL season.
Yeah.
Why? Can I be 100% honest with the Challenge Cup? It's one of those competitions that if you win it, you're it's the best thing in the world. We won the Challenge Cup. We're champions. Screw the rest of the league.
If you lose it, you're just oh well.
If you lose it, you're like the 10 other teams in the league that are okay, that wasn't really that special. I can very much imagine that the Challenge Cup was spawned out of the whole, we've said, the FA Cup. It's one of those, we've got to have another domestic championship for teams to win. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. No other teams no other leagues that I know of are doing this. There's got to be a reason for that, right? Because there's enough games that are being played throughout the season and the playoffs that you don't need it. Do you know what I'd rather?
Attendances, tickets, all the rest of it.
I would rather they got rid of the Challenge Cup and made the playoffs like 3, 5, or 5 game series.
Yeah,
If they had to make up the games, I think that would make more sense.
that would be, because then the playoffs would have more of a impacting kind of
Exactly.
thing. I think, yeah, maybe for the quarterfinals. Yeah, I think finals weekend works quite well.
Finals weekend, I think, is all right. So the quarterfinals and semi-finals.
Well, the
Best of 3.
semi-finals are at finals weekend, aren't they?
Oh, fair point. Yeah. That could be
But
like
no,
a
the
yeah.
quarterfinals, yeah.
I just think whilst teams will like ice the best roster they have for a Challenge Cup game and they'll want to win it, like I don't think they care that much about the Challenge Cup. Of course, I don't have anything to back this up. Like this is just purely speculation what I'm saying right now. But I don't think the players really care about the Challenge Cup unless they win it.
Yeah, I mean it's another option for silverware. I mean, as Ben says,
It's a
the less.
participation trophy.
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
if you went to any
Ben
player in
says,
the Elite League,
Ben says that he says it's easier to win than the league and the playoffs, which is fair, and he says it's a good trophy for lesser teams to aim hard for. But look at the past few years; it's one of the bigger teams that have won it all the years anyway.
yeah, exactly. Like they can aim for it, they never win it.
It's like the League Cup and the FA Cup. It's
Yeah.
the final is still pretty much always Man U, Chelsea,
Exactly.
or Arsenal, or whatever.
It's just a
I know
trophy
there's
to
a
prove,
few odd ones,
oh,
but
like all the trophy does is prove, oh, the best teams are still the best. Like I know it's
Yeah.
like it's sports and anything can happen, and then you get like your Guildfords having a fantastic season last year. You get like Leicester City like winning the Premier League, defying all the odds and all that stuff. You get John Scott being an NHL All-Star. Like you get all that stuff in the NHL and in sports in general. And like we said, that's one of the things we love about sports. It's just
yeah.
I don't get why it's a thing. Like, if you asked any player in the Elite League which trophy they'd rather win, the Challenge Cup would not be on their list. It would be third place out of every single one.
Yeah. It would be league and playoffs and then the Challenge Cup.
It would be playoffs, league, Challenge Cup. Which one do you remember more? The team that wins the league or wins the playoffs? The team that wins the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, that could be argued with the Elite League, but I would still say playoffs. Especially with leagues around the world,
I think
playoff trophies rather than regular season.
The league has more, has a bigger prize in the Elite League because the league winner gets in the CHL.
Yeah, very true, very true.
So teams will aim for the league and go for the CHL.
I think, that's a good point. But then again, they want to finish their season on a playoff victory.
Yeah, also valid.
Yeah,
right. Let's. Go on. Finish your point.
I'm just gonna say I don't mind the Challenge Cup, but like we've said the last few weeks, it's so confusing keeping track of like whether they're playing Challenge Cup, whether they're playing Elite League. Either like if they're gonna keep
whether
the
it's
Challenge
a
Cup,
combined game.
Yeah, like if they're gonna keep the Challenge Cup, just go okay. This weekend is Challenge Cup games.
That's what I said last week, wasn't it? Yeah.
Why confuse stuff? Why the Challenge Cup? It's okay. It's okay, but then at the end of the day, it's going to be third place on any player or any fan's list of the trophies they want to win at the end of every season. It's a participation consolation award. I think that's obvious. Anyway, let us know what you think in the chat, maybe at the end if you want us to carry on talking about it. Sorry, Chris, you were going to say something.
I was going to do the fixtures for next week and then move on to the NHL.
Go for it.
Okay, so on Wednesday, the Giants face the Flames at 7:30.
Which is on Free Sports.
Yes, it is. Yes,
that's on Free Sports. So I'm going to take a watch. You guys should too.
I thought it was on. I thought that was the Devils against, or is that tomorrow?
No, that's
in
tomorrow.
The CHL. Oh, is it? Okay. Oh, lots of ice hockey.
So Free Sports is tomorrow's Cardiff Facture, and then Wednesday is Belfast Guildford in Belfast, I believe.
Yeah.
Because it's been 2 weeks.
Okay,
since
and then
on Panthers Devils game, isn't it?
Yeah. Then on Saturday, Devils against Stars, Storm against Blaze, Panthers, Steelers, and Clan Giants all at 7. At 7:15, Flyers against the Flames. On Sunday at 4:00, Giants against Panthers. At 5:00, the Stars against the Clan. At 5:15, the Blaze against the Storm and the Lightning against the Devils. And then at 6:00, the Flames against the Flyers.
Nice. Sounds like some good games. I'm definitely going to be watching the game on Wednesday.
Yep.
But I think that's going to be a great game. Belfast and Guildford. Like, Belfast, they've been one of the top teams the last few years. They've struggled a little bit early, though, Belfast, to be honest. And
Yeah, I mean, they've pulled it around now.
Oh, yeah.
They're back up to, like, 4th.
Yeah, they're definitely back on track. But, like, they had a bit of a slow start to the league. They've obviously had a great Challenge Cup. But Guildford, I mean, what, they're 3rd in the league at the moment? 4th? Something like that? Like, they're doing really well.
Yeah. Yeah,
they are a fun team to watch. I went to go see Guildford last season when they played the Steelers. They lost that game, but they're a fun team to watch. Like, considering they joined the league last season, they are doing so well. They're like my undercover favourite, you know. Like, if I had to pick a 3rd team, it'd be Guildford most likely. Okay, so that is the Elite League from this last week, and talking about next
NHL.
Week. Of course, we will get back to the Elite League next week for the what would the date be? The 15th of October. Whew, comes fast, doesn't it?
Yeah, will be, won't it? Yeah.
The NHL. So the as some of you may know, last Wednesday the NHL season started back up again with the Maple Leafs against the Montreal Canadiens. Yep, that's what it was. That was a great game to watch.
Overtime win.
Yep, they've started their season quite strongly. So I'm going to go through the league and see where we're at. So most teams have played either 2 or 3 games. You'll be pleased to know that down in 31st, the New York Rangers.
Hey.
Going through a rebuild, lads. So, tanking for Hughes. So we have the Carolina Hurricanes have gotten off to a very good start with 5 points in 3 games. I'll just rattle down the entire thing, I think.
Yeah.
So, 2 wins, 1 overtime loss for Carolina, 5 points. They scored 7 goals past Georgiev and an empty netter yesterday night. Thanks for that. Really damaged my DraftKings. With the same record as the Chicago Blackhawks, a very interesting start to the season for them. Jonathan Toews scored a hat-trick. I think he scored 4 goals in the last 2 games. He's playing very well at the moment. Patrick Kane adding a few as well.
But they still lost.
Yeah, in OT, though. That was a crazy game. What was up with the scores in yesterday's games? There was an 8-5 game, a 7-6 game.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell is going on?
2-7. Oh, no, that was October.
Yeah. And then the Dallas Stars, they're tied 3rd with several teams. They have won both games. They've got 4 points, 2 wins in 2 games, 4 points for them. The Colorado Avalanche have the same. The Anaheim Ducks have the same. And the Nashville Predators have the same. Then we have Toronto with 2 wins and 1 loss for 4 points in 3 games.
What you've got to consider with Toronto is both of their wins are overtime wins.
Yes, and their loss came to Ottawa? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, their loss came to Ottawa. Washington, they have won a game and lost a game in OT, a crazy 7-6 game against Pittsburgh. I don't know what's happening. There's a lot of goals being scored early in this season. The Montreal Canadiens, surprisingly, a win and an overtime loss. Their last game was a 5-1 win against the Pittsburgh Penguins. 3 points in 2 games for them. The LA Kings, 1 win and 1 overtime loss. Their most recent game was a 4-2 victory against Detroit. Ilya Kovalchuk with a pair of assists in that game, so he's getting back to fine form. The Ottawa Senators with 1 win and 1 overtime loss as well. Their most recent game, a 5-3 victory against the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's what it was.
Yep.
3 points for them. The New Jersey Devils, they have played 1 game, which was the Global Series game in Sweden against the Edmonton Oilers. They won that game by a score of 5-2. So they're 1-0-0 in 1 game. Tampa Bay are the same, but they won 2-1 against the Florida Panthers. Calgary have played 2 games. They are 1-1-0. Their last game was a 7-4 victory against the Vancouver Canucks. Elias Pettersson, who's on the Vancouver Canucks, who we'll talk about in a minute. He is a stud. 5 points in 2 games. The New York Islanders, 1 win and 1 loss for 2 points as well. Their most recent game was a 4-3 loss against Nashville. The Philadelphia Flyers with the same record. Their most recent game, a 5-2 loss against the Colorado Avalanche. Vancouver with the same record. Their most recent game, obviously, a 7-4 loss to Calgary. Then Winnipeg are going 1-1-0 for 2 points. Their most recent game, a 5-1 loss against Dallas. Columbus 1-1-0 for 2 points as well. Of course, it's very early on in the season. A lot of similar records. Their most recent game was a loss to the Carolina Hurricanes 3-1. Buffalo with the same record. They most recently beat the New York Rangers 3-1. Thanks for that, Buffalo. San Jose, a 1-1 record. They most recently beat the Kings 3-2. Erik Karlsson getting his first assist in that game as a Shark, I remember. The Boston Bruins 1-1-0. Their most recent game was a 4-0 shutout victory against the Buffalo Sabres, after, of course, being destroyed by the Washington Capitals on opening night. Pittsburgh 1-1-0. Their most recent game, 5-1 loss to Montreal. Vegas 1-1-0. Their most recent game, a 2-1 victory in a shootout against the Minnesota Wild. Florida, they have only played one game, lost in OT against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Detroit are 0-1-1, a 4-2 loss most recently against the LA Kings. The Minnesota Wild are going 0-1-1, most recently against the Vegas Golden Knights, like we said. The St. Louis Blues, who are looking like they're going to have a good season, they've got off to a bit of a slow start. 0-1-1, their most recent game, a overtime loss to the Chicago Blackhawks, 5-4. The Edmonton Oilers, they have only played one game, but they lost that game in the Global Series against the New Jersey Devils in Sweden. The Arizona Coyotes have played 2 games, and they have lost both of them. They're in 30th place in the league. Their most recent game being a 1-0 shutout loss against the Anaheim Ducks. And last but not least, with 3 games played, 0-3-0, the New York Rangers. Their last game was last night, an 8-5 loss to the Carolina Hurricanes. They led that game. They led that game 4 different times, and they still lost.
We should point out 2 live games at the moment. The Boston Bruins at the end of 2 are leading the Ottawa Senators by 3-2.
I need the Senators to score.
And the San Jose Sharks, they've just started the 3rd period. They're trailing by a 0-0 to the New York Islanders, and that game is live on Free Sports. So once we finish up, go and watch the end of that one.
Literally both the teams that I picked players for my DraftKings lineup are on losing teams. And the losing teams haven't scored any goals. Oh wait, Ottawa are 3-2 down after the second. You said 3-0.
That's what I just said. No, I didn't. I said 3-2. I said they're trailing by 3-2.
Oh, did you? Oh, I must not have been listening. Hey, Shabbat got an assist though, so that's good. As did Dylan DeMello. Hey. Okay. So, yeah, those are the standings as of the 8th of October. Of course, there's a game with the Golden Knights and the Buffalo Sabres taking place later today. Well, I think it starts in about 5 minutes. So, there's that. So hopefully something decent
3 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, that's 8 o'clock, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the teams doing well, teams not doing so well. I mean, Carolina's obviously off to a great start.
Yeah, I mean, it's very. I mean, that.
It's very early on.
It's very early. I mean, Carolina links in with the next point we're going to talk about, isn't it? So.
Yes, that's a good point. I was just going to quickly say that Montreal and Ottawa, quite impressed with how well they've started. I thought they were going to be absolute shite. So
yeah, I think once we've got to the first 10, then you're going to start to see.
Yeah, we're going to start seeing some gaps. Yeah. It's like the Elite League season. Sometimes it's just a little bit too early to tell.
Yeah.
So, so this was I decided to come up with a bit of a NHL debate topic as well. So the topic that I put forward to Chris, and I think I'll let you answer this one first. Okay. Which first-year head coach in the NHL has impressed you, or do you think has impressed the NHL the most during the first week of the season? Because the first week of the season is technically officially over. So there are just for information's sake, there are 4 new head coaches in the NHL this season. There is Jim Montgomery from the Dallas Stars. He came from the University of Denver in the NCAA. There was David Quinn, who is the head coach of the New York Rangers. He came from
I think we're going to rule him out in the first week. Yeah, not going to lie.
He came from Boston University, or was it Boston College? I think it was Boston College of the NCAA. I really should know this. Then we have Rod Brindamore, who was an assistant coach last season. I believe he's now been promoted to head coach of the Carolina Hurricanes. They're obviously off to a great start, so he might be one of them. And the last one is Todd Reirden of the Washington Capitals, who was part of that championship-winning team last season, got himself a Stanley Cup ring. He was an assistant coach last year. Of course, Barry Trotz decides to leave for the Islanders, so he has taken the reins, has Todd Reirden. So, Chris, which new head coach has impressed you the most so far this season?
Well, from the first week of the season, you go with Jim Montgomery, the Dallas Stars, 2 wins, 2-0-0.
I would have gone the exact same.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this before. I mean, if you rule out the Rangers because, well, rule out David Quinn.
Now I know how it feels to be a Maple Leaf for the last 50 years.
Ooh.
Sorry, carry on.
But if you look at Todd Reardon he's done all right at the start with Washington, but there's going to be a lot of pressure on him considering they're the defending champions.
Yeah, essentially a Stanley Cup or bust for them, really, isn't it?
In a sense, yeah, they need at least a really deep playoff run again.
Yeah.
If you look at Rod Brindamore, again, Carolina have had a good start. They have got that overtime loss, so they're still undefeated in regulation. So they're also,
Yeah.
have had a strong start. But Dallas, with that +7 goal difference, they've only conceded 1 goal in 2 games.
Yeah, and Ben Bishop earning the third.
Ben Bishop with the
star of the
shutout on opening night, and then only conceding 1 against Winnipeg,
which is a tough team to play.
2 nights ago.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with the Dallas Stars and Jim Montgomery.
I would agree. I'm going to go with Jim Montgomery of the Dallas Stars as well. I think he's obviously got a lot of firepower on that team. He's got Ben, he's got Sagan, he's got Radulov, he's got Spezza, he has Valeri Nikushkin, but I think he's on the IR at the moment. So, but he's got a lot of offensive weapons there on his team.
He does.
His defense isn't as strong necessarily. I mean, they've got some good pieces back there. They've got Miro Heiskanen, of course, was the 2017 number 3 pick in the draft. He's cracked the roster this year. Of course, got Klimberg. They've got a couple of other guys back there, which I can't remember off the top of my head. But Ben Bishop was a big X factor for the Dallas Stars, I think. And so far, he's shown that it's only 2 games in, obviously. But to allow 1 goal in 2 games, it earned himself the 3rd star of the NHL for the last week. So the opening week, he got the 3rd star of the week. So that's pretty awesome. I think, though, Carolina and Rod Brindamore is a very interesting one. They're a team that haven't made the playoffs, I think, in 9 seasons, I think I heard. And, of course, Rod Brindamore has a very interesting... he's a very big fan favourite, of course, because he was the captain of the Carolina Hurricanes when the team won their first and only Stanley Cup to date so far. So he's got a lot of love from the fans. He's obviously been part of the coaching staff for the last couple of years. So he's been seeing how the system works, how some of his players are. They've always had quite a strong defensive core in Carolina. Of course, they traded a few of those pieces away this last off-season to pick up... who did they trade for? Oh, I should know this. Oh, they traded away Dougie Hamilton, didn't they? They traded away... No, it wasn't Dougie Hamilton. What am I on about? They traded for Dougie Hamilton. That's what I mean. Yeah, they traded away some of their defensive core to Calgary. Yeah, they got a couple of pieces from Calgary, and Calgary picked up Elias Lindholm and somebody else. I really should have done my research on this, shouldn't I? So yeah, the Carolina Hurricanes, I think, are an interesting start. They have played 3 games. They're one of the only teams to have played 3 games. I think only about 6 or 7 teams have played about 3 games, if that, so far this season, and they're doing all right. Like you said, haven't lost in regulation.
Yep.
However, their goaltending's not very good at the moment. They allowed 5 goals last game with Peter Mrazek in net. Scott Darling's on the injured reserve. The goaltending's been a big question mark for the Carolina Hurricanes the last few seasons. So we'll have to see if that holds up for them. The defense is strong enough, but the actual guy in the crease hasn't been too good for them so far. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens there. In terms of the other 2 coaches, like we said, Todd Reardon, he's got a lot of expectation, but he has got a lot of solid players in that lineup. So the fact that they've gone 1-0-1 so far this season, that's still a pretty decent record. They lost in overtime to Pittsburgh, which I think that was Pittsburgh's... They wanted to beat them. They wanted to beat the Caps after last year's playoffs. And I think that was the deciding factor in that. They just battled a little bit harder than the Capitals, perhaps. Although, 6 goals, there was a 13-goal game like that. You don't get that very often. I say that, but we've had 3 of them in the first week of the NHL.
Well, yeah, quite.
Yeah. And then the New York Rangers, it's obviously a different situation to the other 3 teams. The other 3 teams are trying to go for the playoffs. All teams are trying to go for the playoffs, but maybe not so much Carolina. Dallas and Washington are wanting to have very deep playoff runs. Carolina's wanting to get back to the playoffs. The New York Rangers, we don't really know what's happening with that team. And of course, they're my favourite team in the league. They're the team that I follow the most. So of course, I'm going to be a little bit biased in some ways, but I like to try and be as objective as possible. They're a team that they've got a lot of young players on their roster. They're kind of trying to follow some of the different models that have happened, like the Toronto model or the Arizona model, trying to get younger guys in there with a younger coach that knows how to deal with younger players. I would say, though, I think they've played quite well. They lost by 1 goal to the reigning President's Trophy champions in their opening night game. Whilst Nashville was leading that game, I think 2-1 for the majority of the game, or for most of the time the goals have been scored. I don't think the Rangers played too horribly in that game. Their second game was against I know this. Buffalo. That was an okay game. Henrik Lundqvist, I mean, bailed them out several times. They put like 40 shots on Carter Hutton. They just couldn't put anything behind him until like 5 minutes left in the game. So once again, I don't feel like that was a horrible game. It was more just they couldn't actually put the puck away. They were getting the shots, just not the like high percentage shots. And then last game was just an absolute mess. But then again, you could argue that it was kind of a mess for both sides. Like it wasn't exactly a pretty game for Carolina. Let's be honest. So yeah. I think it's interesting to see these coaches. Of course, very early on, we're not even like a tenth of the way through the season yet. So we've still got plenty of hockey to play. So yeah, that's very interesting. So I think we should move on. There's a bit of news about the Seattle expansion. I believe there's been some extra talk about that. I saw a article by the Hockey News recently about it. I'm just going to see if I can bring it up. What does it say? So, the Seattle expansion took a giant step forward this week, and after rumblings their debut could be delayed, the 32nd team appears back on track for a 2020/21 beginning. So, the Seattle expansion... let's see if I can read this. So, on Tuesday, the eve of the 2018-19 NHL season, officials from the NHL and the Board of Governors Executive Committee met with members of the group supporting Seattle's bid for an NHL team, including prospective owner David Bondman and Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin. And following an hour-long presentation, NHL Commissioner and everyone's favourite bad guy, Gary Bettman, delivered the news most were expecting. Seattle will take its next step towards approval for a team in the league. So that's pretty awesome. So they've met with them, and I believe there's been approval given. Yes, so the Seattle City Council was unanimous in giving Seattle a $700 million renovation project. They gave them the go-ahead to build a new arena. I think they're getting rid of the old basketball arena they had for the Seattle Supersonics. They're tearing that down, putting up a new $700 million key arena. So they're going to have that put up. And it's just, essentially, it's a case of, they're going to meet later on in the year, I believe in December or so. That's when they might go, okay, we're going to give you permission to start doing a ticket drive, going to give you, start having a look at stuff. I think this is good.
It'd be interesting, well, if/when the team get their franchise, because they'll have to do a bit of a shake around, because then obviously they're in the West, as same as the Vegas Golden Knights, so they'll have to move like the easternmost Western team into the East.
Yeah.
To have an equal 16 in each. So it'd be interesting to see what they do there.
So when they had to. So a little while ago, before they renamed all of the divisions to like the Metropolitan and the Pacific and things like that, the Metropolitan was like the obvious change of name, if you want to use that word.
Yeah.
They had Detroit and Columbus, I believe. There were a couple of teams that changed places. Essentially, I think it would just be a case of finding one of the teams that's more in the central US, switching them back over to the West as opposed to the East. Like Detroit moved from the Western Conference to the East, I think, when this happened. They'll need
to move a team from the West to the East again.
Yeah, so I guess it's just finding one of those teams that's closer to the East and just going, you're in the Eastern Conference now. I don't think it'll be that difficult, if I'm honest.
No, I wasn't suggesting it was difficult. That's just a thing they'll have to do.
Yeah, and of course that will be very interesting. Like, for example, if a Stanley Cup contender moves from the West to the East, that's going to be very interesting.
Change everything. Yeah.
Yeah, if a... of course, we're very much talking about like 2 seasons' time. Like this isn't something that's going to happen overnight. So
by which point we'll be on like season 3, episode whatever.
Exactly, which would be awesome. So so some news coming from Seattle. It's just very much with the Seattle situation. We just need to wait to see more. Really, there's not a huge. There's been steps that are taken, but there needs to be a vote. There's nothing that said like they are definitely getting a team yet. Like, there's not been any official confirmation yet. It's all pointing towards that they're going to, and I think in all likelihood they're going to. But we just need to wait and see what the Board of Governors, what the NHL vote on, and I think it's December. It might be later on. we'll have to wait and see. It's one of those wait and see scenarios, I think.
Yeah, it is.
And
Finally in the NHL.
Lastly, with our NHL news, of course, I think we still need to carry on talking about William Nylander of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, as some of you may know, the NHL season has begun last week. Teams have played 2 or 3 games mostly, and William Nylander is still unsigned by the Toronto Maple Leafs. There's been reports. I've been watching a lot of the NHL Network coverage of this Nylander situation. It seems that William Nylander is asked, they're supposedly, his agent and everything are trying to ask for more towards $8 million a season. So sort of more Leon Draisaitl money. Whereas the Maple Leafs want to offer him more $6.5 million. It's been rumoured that the Nylander camp has come down to $7 million that they're asking for a season, whereas the Maple Leafs are wanting to give them $6 million. So more like in the Nikolai Ehlers of the Winnipeg Jets money. So it's, I guess the question is, are both teams going to settle for a meeting in the middle at 6.5? There's not really much budging at the moment from either side. Both sides are being quite stubborn in this negotiation from what I've seen. And of course,
I think
go for it.
I think Toronto would clearly like to keep him because otherwise they wouldn't be bothering with all this toing and froing.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously he's a valuable player in terms of value.
Yes.
For potential trades in the future.
Yep. He had a great season last year as well.
He did. You then look at, they've now got Tavares. They've scored 12 goals in 3 games.
Yep.
I think it was, or was it 13 goals?
Austin
do they
Matthews
need him?
Has 3 points a game at the moment.
Yeah. Do they need him, or do they need to just do they need to get rid of him and bring in more defensemen, because that's clearly where they're struggling? Because if you need your forwards to score 7 goals to win you a game, then you're clearly doing something wrong.
Because the problem is William Nylander has become the odd man out, I think, in Toronto. It's clear that they want to sign him long term. They want to sign, because of course the salary cap rises every year pretty much. So by the time that, if they do get him to a contract of, say, $6.5 million for the next 6-7 years or something like that, by the time that contract is in its latter years, that's not going to be that much money in terms of the salary cap rising every year. That could be the rising of the salary cap for the next 3 years sorted, and then they've still got that original money that they can spend on the rest of their players.
But also, he's not going to be, because they've sorted their, as you can clearly see from the goals that are going in, they've sorted their top few lines out.
Yeah.
So he's not going to be playing where he wants to be playing and getting the ice time he wants to be getting.
The thing is, I think Coach Mike Babcock has been shuffling a lot of stuff around at the moment, trying to find the right wingers to put with the right centres. Because, of course, they've got Matthews, they've got Tavares, and they've got Kadri. That's how the centres seem to stack up at the moment in Toronto. And I think last game, Kasperi Kapanen was playing with Austin Matthews. Because they've got Tyler Ennis or Kasperi Kapanen on that first line, which they'd really like to have Nylander there. Have Marner, Matthews, Nylander. That's a solid line. That's a solid first line. Better than Ennis or Kapanen being on that first line. Although Kapanen did have a goal and an assist last game. So, or at least that. So, the problem is they've signed Tavares long term. They're obviously going to give Matthews the money that he wants. I could see him being signed for $12 million. Whilst I don't think he's worth that much, I would say 10.5, maybe 11 mil. I don't think he should earn as much as Connor McDavid personally, but I think he will. They want to lock down Marner, because the thing is, Matthews and Marner are the better 2 players out of the 3.
Yep.
Nylander's a good player, but he's not a Matthews and he's not a Marner. Marner is, I would say, the second best player out of the 3. Matthews clearly the first. Just in case of their overall maturity of their game and who puts up points the most consistently. It's a numbers game at the end of the day. There has been also talk of potentially, will there be a situation where they sign Nylander and then trade him? Will that be a situation that happens? Potentially. I think there's several teams that he could go to that would benefit from Nylander.
As we said last week, though, now that the season started, he's not getting paid, and now the Maple Leafs have the stronger position.
Oh yeah, at the end of the day, the Maple Leafs are going to win regardless. Like,
Yeah,
they've got their top three players, their top three forwards already like they're going to lock them down. Nylander is unfortunately he's the Ringo Starr of the Toronto Maple Leafs at the moment. You know? Like he's kind of like the one that people kind of forget about out of the lot, and the only reason he's being talked about so much is because his agent or him or whoever is in charge of this whole situation is holding out for so long. And like we said last week, the NHL season has begun. He's starting to lose potential money that he could be earning, and he's not playing. He's I believe training in Sweden at the moment, which is his native country. His dad, of course, was a former NHL player, so his dad knows how the business works. He's got a younger brother playing in Buffalo at the moment, but he's in the minors. Excuse me. So I think he's got another year before his entry-level contract is up, another year or two, something like that. But William Nylander is a very interesting topic. I think he will get signed by the Maple Leafs eventually. I think December 1st is the deadline. Otherwise, he can't play this entire season. I will be very interested to see what happens. I think the Maple Leafs will sign him. Will they trade him afterwards? Potentially. I don't think they will, because I think they want to keep him long term. I think they want to keep Tavares, Matthews, Marner, and Nylander as their kind of top four players. I think if they had to bump one away, they might bump Kadri away, like if the worst came to the worst. But like we said, if they were going to trade him, they need to trade him for a solid top four defenseman, without a doubt. Where they get that from, I don't know.
The defense is where they need it, but
yes, of course.
I think that again, it's a let it unfold situation, isn't it? Really?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, the thing is, this has been going on essentially all summer, and they're obviously wanting to. They've got until next off season to sign Matthews and Marner. Apparently, Matthews' agent has said that they'd be open to getting a contract signed before the end of the season. Marner's camp have been a little bit more like, let's let the season go on a little bit before we start having talks. So a very interesting situation there in Toronto. I hope Nylander does get signed soon by someone, because I think he's a heck of a hockey player, and he deserves to play somewhere, I think. Whether that's with the Maple Leafs or not, I guess we will find out.
Yep.
So we're coming towards the latter portion of the
we're into the third period.
Oh, there you go. I like that. Just a quick bit from Liam Kirk's corner. Kirk's corner.
Kirk's corner.
Kirk's corner. So Liam Kirk, of course, playing for the Peterborough Petes, I believe is still on the first line for the OHL team, the 7th round pick of the Arizona Coyotes, and of course Elite Ice Hockey League alumni and British-born player. So he started last week. He had 3 points in 4 games, so he was doing pretty well for himself. Unfortunately, his production has slowed down a little bit, as the Petes have taken a few losses this last week. They're not doing as well as they might have hoped for. They started the season with 3 straight wins. They're kind of coming back to roughly 500 hockey at the moment. However, Kirk does have 4 points, 2 goals, and 2 assists in 6 games for the Peterborough Petes. So he's not quite a point per game, but he's still being quite productive on the points side. But I can imagine, I haven't watched any Petes games, I've got to be honest, but I think he's still doing a very good job on
I think he is,
I think he's one of those players that's good at the stuff that doesn't come up on the stat sheet.
Yeah, I follow the Petes on Twitter, and you know when Kirk's done something good, because they just post a ton of Union Jacks and just
it's brilliant.
Kirk's done something.
He's quite a good two-way player, I think.
Kirk.
So he's not always the kind of player that comes up on the score sheet, but that doesn't mean he's not had a good game. Like he's the kind of guy that will make the good stretch pass, or he's the good kind of guy that will make a block when he's needed. I think he's doing well. I'm sure his point scoring will pick back up as the Petes find their form again. So yeah, I think he's doing all right.
Yeah,
so
he
now
is.
we'll go. Sorry, what?
I was just about to say he is, and now let's go on to fantasy league. So
exactly. So with the NHL starting last week, the fantasy league of the Odd Men Out Hockey League has begun. So I'm just gonna bring up the fantasy scoreboard.
I've got the scoreboard up.
No. I'm gonna show him, Chris.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Go for it.
I'm
Go
going to
for it.
show them on the stream
Ah,
because
okay.
I am professional like that.
So,
So if I just go,
you and I
boom,
tied.
there we go. So behind us now,
It's
you
not
can
come up for
see
me yet.
the overall scores for the first week of the Fantasy Hockey League from October 3rd to October
Ooh.
7th. Yeah, look at that. It's cool, isn't it? So, the odd man rush, me, hello. I was up
Yep.
against the Pyongyang Sucklords, which I think is a brilliant name. Luckily, I had a very good weekend. He was leading ours for the.
Who are you playing?
I don't know who it was exactly, but he was leading from Wednesday to Friday. Like for the week, he was leading, and then
And you just had
Saturday,
a good
Sunday,
weekend.
I came in and snuck that. So I'm going 1-0 with 55 points over 47. The Croatian Jets managed to beat Clarkie's Infants with a score of 48-32. Trump's fake wife have beaten Nottingham Redhawks by a score of 55-44. The Denver Sports team beat the Beanheads 73-61 points. Chris's team, Webcast Please Nottingham, beat the Toronto Thunderbirds 55 points to 44. The Habs Suck beat the Nottingham Yeet with 87-54. The Shaw Billionaires beat Stanley Yelnats with a score of 71-39. And I think the biggest blowout of the year so far, the Duncan PlayStation's beating the Portsmouth Pirates 76-22. Wow.
I suspect, is that somebody, I can't remember who the Portsmouth Pirates are.
No, I can't remember either.
Is that somebody who forgot to update their squad?
Probably. Yeah,
I would
be surprised.
suspect. And had injured players / wavered players on there.
So for this week coming up, if we could just load that quickly, wonderful. So we've already got some live scores coming in, actually. So with the games taking place at the moment. So I'm up against Stanley Yelnats. I'm up against Felix's squad, and I'm losing 4-0 at the moment. Fair enough.
I think I'm winning, aren't I?
We've got the Pyongyang Sucklords beating Clarkie's Infants 14-6 so far. Wow, 14-6 already? Jesus.
Yeah,
then we have Chris, you're beating Trump's fake wife 5-2.
I am. Pasternak with 5 points. That's all that's doing it for me.
It's not too bad. The Toronto Thunderbirds are beating the Shaw Billionaires by a score of 0 to -2.
Netminders.
Two Nottingham teams, the Nottingham Outlaws and the Nottingham Red. Max gets his first game of the season. Max gets in.
He's not here. I think he's had to go to training.
Yeah. They are tied so far, so nothing happening there so far for either team. The Croatian Jets and the Denver Sports team both tied, nothing happening there yet. The Beanheads against the Portsmouth Pirates 13-0. Wow, that's pretty crazy. And then the Duncan PlayStations are playing Habs Suck, and they are winning 2 points to -3. So I would look at the standings.
Just quickly, update in the NHL. Oh yeah, the standings are kind of. So some teams have won one and lost none, and other teams have. Yeah. Okay. Update in the NHL. Boston have restored their 2-goal lead. They lead 4-2 against the Senators, but the Senators are on the power play. 12-16. It's 12-16 to go in that one. The New York Islanders have increased their lead to 3-0 over the San Jose Sharks. 4.5 minutes left in the third in that one. And Vegas are drawing 0-0 with Buffalo.
Hey, I know. I want to win in my showdown with Vegas and Buffalo, please. So if my players could score some goals, get some assists, maybe some shots on goal, that would be tremendous. I'm only out by 0.4 points at the moment, so I'm doing all right on that one. But the other one I've basically lost already. It really hasn't gone very well. So yeah, that's everything to do with the Fantasy League. Make sure you
update your squad.
Yes, update your lineups. Oh, Ristolainen already has 2 shots on goal. What a lad. So yeah, make sure you update your lineups. I updated my lineups earlier today before the game started. I'm set until next Monday.
I'm doing mine after the stream.
Yeah, just do them every week. Get them sorted.
Who scored that goal for Boston then?
I assume it was somebody good.
Well, I'll tell you because I've got the game sheet up, but it's taking forever.
Back to normal. Look at that seamless transition.
Bergeron with 2 goals in the first. In fact, Bergeron's got a hat-trick tonight. There we go.
I was thinking about putting him on my team, and I chose not to.
Sorry.
Oh!
He's got a hat-trick tonight.
That's so frustrating. That's really frustrating. I literally sat there like, should I put Bergeron on? Oh, he's only had a goal and an assist so far this year. I'm not too sure. Who did I put on instead? I need to check this.
He's not going to be happy.
I put up Eichel and Matt Duchene.
Well,
Really? Thanks, Bergeron.
okay. Extra news.
Yes.
So this is overtime now.
Yes, we're going to overtime. So I thought I'd chuck in there. We often talk about the men's leagues. I feel like we should also mention the women's hockey leagues out there because first of all, they don't really get as much attention as the men's hockey league. I must admit, I don't really watch much of the women's hockey.
No, I don't. I watch it at the Olympics, but
yeah,
apart
exactly.
from that,
one, because it's not exactly shown that much compared to other leagues, and two, because it's just one of those, like, whenever I find the time to be able to watch something like that, I'll go, like, oh yeah, I'll watch some of that. It's not on. So yes, the NWHL, the National Women's Hockey League, has begun, I think, this last week. So if you're interested in watching some women's hockey, there's some great players there.
there are.
Including Amanda Kessel, who is a fantastic hockey player. Go ahead and check out the NWHL if you want to see what's going on there. And I believe the Canadian Women's Hockey League starts next week. I checked their standing. So if you want to see the Canadian Women's Hockey League, who have a team in Kowloon, Shanghai now, which is very interesting. I read that this morning.
Okay.
They've got like 6 teams in the league, or 7 teams in the league, and one of them's in China on the other side of the world. So
That makes me think of rugby league over here because they've got that Toronto team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So if you're wanting to check out Canadian women's hockey, then feel free to check over there. Yeah, go check out women's hockey if you're interested.
Do it.
It might be your cup of tea. It might not be, and that's fine. But I think it's important that we do try and highlight some other stuff because we talk about the Elite League, we talk about the NHL. But it's nice to have like little bits added. Like, for example, last week we talked a little bit about the KHL or something. This week, talk a little bit about the Women's Hockey League. Who is it? Ashley Knight? Is that her? She's a really good hockey player as well. And there's a couple of rookies, I think, that are coming through like the college system that are going to be there this year, which I think will have some good seasons, I think. So, we're on to the last
Into the
call.
shootout.
Yeah, we're on to the last call, ladies and gents. So if you have any questions you would like to ask us for the last, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes
10
or so.
minutes, 10 minutes or so.
It could be related to topics that we talked about earlier. If you want us to carry on, if you
I'll tell you what, why don't we go to the end of the Ottawa-Boston game, which has 9:42 left?
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
I
Again,
just thought it was
including stoppages as well.
Well, yeah, it'll be about 15 minutes, won't it? All San Jose have gone for an empty net, 3-0 down.
Why have they gone? Oh yeah, I was wondering, like, why have they gone for an empty net?
They're 3-0 down with 3:20 to go.
I know it's not hockey, but did you watch Doctor Who? I did not.
No, because I was commentating on the Lions.
Yeah, fair enough. I haven't watched Doctor Who since... I haven't properly watched it since David Tennant, so...
Yeah, that's same with me, really.
So it's one of those things that I used to watch as a kid, and then I just kind of found it a little bit boring and formulaic, so... of course, new woman doctor. I can't remember the name of the
Jodie
woman.
Whittaker.
Yeah, that's it, Jodie Whittaker. She's a very good actress. I wouldn't have pictured her as the Doctor if they had to pick any female actress playing it. She wouldn't have been the one that I chose, but she's a very good actress. I've seen her in plenty of other stuff, and she's very good. So apparently, lots of people found it quite disappointing. So yeah, I know Chris.
San Jose Sharks till I die. I know, Chris. I'm watching game on my phone and getting really angry.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had several Sharks players on my DraftKings lineup, and they're not doing.
I just want Boston to keep winning because that's always good for me.
I mean, if Matt Duchene could get himself a hat trick, and if Erik Karlsson could get himself a hat trick, I'd be all right. But I don't think it's going to happen. So. Thanks, San Jose. I'm going to lose $2 tonight. Because the last few days, I'll put on 2 $1 ones where if you get in the top 10, you gain $2 back, right? So if I lose one and I win the other, I've still broken even. But of course, that comes with the caveat that if I lose both, I lose $2, which isn't very helpful. So yeah, last call for any questions. Any questions about the topic?
If we don't get any questions, we'll just finish up. Really.
Exactly. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and wait for you guys to ask questions. Like, if you've got any questions, ask them now. If you don't, then we'll see you later.
Yeah, basically.
We'll give you a minute or two just to chuck one in there.
Yeah, have a chance to type one.
Yeah, you know. Just checking my DraftKings lineup while I wait. Really, I've got so another one they've got is a showdown where you can pick players from one specific game, and I've got them on the Vegas game. Ristolainen's doing all right. Lindbergh's got a face-off win. Marshall Sol's finally got himself a shot on goal. Jack Eichel's done basically nothing. Great.
Mark asks me, how are my Lions doing this evening?
Not very well.
Sorry, this season. Well, we have been getting better. We have been getting better. This weekend we only lost 8-4 and 6-3.
Only 8-4.
So what happened?
You didn't even do as good as the Rangers. They lost 8-5.
You can go and listen to commentary of the game on the Lions YouTube channel, but they were 1-0 down at the end of the first period, 3-2 down at the end of the second period. They then tied it 18 seconds in to the third period, and then kind of a bit similar to the Panthers, took silly penalties and just fell a couple of goals behind, and then they couldn't really do anything off the end of that, really.
Did anyone have a tantrum this time?
No.
Oh, that's good.
There was a fight. Commentated on my first proper fight.
Hey. That's a milestone. You should get a puck with written on the side. First fight commentary.
I've had an overtime. I've not had a shootout yet. I just need a shootout commentary.
Oh, that'll be fun to commentate though.
Yeah, I bet. So
Ben
that's kind of how it's going. Played 9, lost 9.
Wow. So Ben, hello Ben, how are you? He wants to know our predictions for the Devils Lakers tomorrow. That's a tough one actually, because
it is.
They've beaten the Lakers before. However, they've lost to the Lakers so far this year. I'm going to have to go with convention and go the Lakers because they're actually like a pretty solid team. I mean, I think Cardiff could be like, surprise, we're going to win because we've basically got nothing left to lose now, and they can play like the upset and cause Vaxshire some problems. However, the Vaxshire Lakers are a solid team. Was that the team Elias Peterson was on? It might have been. I'll have to check that. I'll check that. Chris, give me your thoughts and I'll check.
I, as I said earlier, I'd like Cardiff to win. The first thing that popped into my head, and I like to go with literally the first thing that comes into my head, is Lakers 4-2.
Yeah.
But I would like Cardiff to win. It was Vaxshire.
Yeah, he had 56 points in 44 games.
Okay.
As an 18-year-old. That's crazy.
Yeah, that is pretty good.
And then in the playoffs, he had 19 points in 13 games. Jesus. This kid is a stud. He's got 5 points, 3 goals and 2 assists in 2 NHL games so far. This kid, he's a stud. Okay. So Cardiff beat Lakers and Davos last year. Yes, they did. Unfortunately, it's not last year though, is it? So
sadly, but
I can see them getting at least one win. I just don't know where that win's going to come from. I think it's too tough to say. The EIHL Blaze are 3 wins, 1 loss this season. That's not too bad. It's pretty decent.
Yeah, because the NIHL Coventry Blaze have got Ads Andrews now. He scored his first goal for them, but in the second spell. So
yeah. Okay.
But,
so I think that's the end.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go with that.
That's a solid.
The New York Islanders have just gone 4-0 in front, short-handed. So that's that game over.
This. Do you know why? Because I have Martin Jones in goal for my DraftKings lineup. I had Georgiev in last night, who allowed 7 goals. I've now got... Why? Why is it every time I put a player in, I jinx them? So, it's a good thing I don't have him in my fantasy league, though. So, that has been Season 1, Episode 5 of the Icing on the Skate podcast, of course.
It has.
Thank you very much to Lions commentator Chris Gadsby for
Not
joining me today again. Next week... we will have more stuff on the Elite League, more stuff on the NHL, more stuff on the Fantasy League, basically a bit more of the same, which you can't really go wrong with. So, thank you very much for watching, guys.
Let us know if there's any topics you want us to debate next week.
Yes, let us know on Twitter. Our Twitter handles are on the screen right there, at OddmanRushYT and at Chris_Gadsby. I'm trying to point to it properly. I think it's that way. There we go. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed.
Yep.
Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. Peace!